What's going on, YouTube? James Polk here. Throughout the previous season, wanted to showcase you guys the way how I built the Magical Musket deck profiles. And the idea with this deck list is to annoy your opponent in terms of controlling the board state, because this deck does well going first or second depending on the game state. And a good pilot knows how to manage resources carefully. But if you're ever in a good spot where if you have yourself a good hand, then all you need to do is shotgun the cards at the proper time so that you should be able to take advantage of. And with that being said, let's get into this deck list for you guys. Starting off fresh with Samuel the Black Huntsman, just a one-of, aka Mastermind Zakiel. It's literally one of those bad cards that you don't mind drawing, but you just like rather not draw into it though. But you have other ways to have Samuel stick to the field. So his ability is that you can tribute summon this big guy by tribute one Magical Musket, which is super nice. And then just to share some time, all muskets have the continuous effect where anyone's turn you can activate spells and traps, musket spells and traps from your hand, which is ridiculousness. And then the lower level muskets, they all do something once the spell traps activate in the same column as the lower level muskets on the separate chain. So in this one for Samuel, once per turn during your opponent's end phase, draw cards equal to the number of Magical Musket spell traps you activated this turn while he's face up. So this is your Clifford monolith of muskets. One Wild Bill Hickok. He is your pot of avarice of 3 Magical Muskets to draw one. You usually be running out of Maxes, Cross Doms, and Desperados way too early in the game. So by recycling those in a super grind game state, you should be in a pretty good spot. 2 Calamity Janes. She is the monster reborn of any Magical Musket from the main deck from your graveyard to defense mode. Calamity Jane can be really good, especially the fact that if you lost both of your Docs, Wild Bill, or Samuel, this lets you keep on recurring things so that you would literally never run out of infinite resource gain. 3 Bellstar, aka Starfire. She is the emergency teleport of level 4 or lower Magical Musket from your deck in defense. So generally with this play with Bellstar, I usually go for Caspar and then try to facilitate as much advantage as I really can. 2 Billy the Kid. Originally I was on 3, but 3 copies is never that necessary, even though Billy the Kid is one of those excellent beat sticks at the lower levels, aside from Wild Bill Hickok. The idea with Billy the Kid is he lets you ditch a Magical Musket card, copies included, and spells and traps included, to draw 2. And generally the idea is if you have multiple copies of something, you can just trade off one of the copies of the muskets you have in your hand just to try to see your musket spells and traps. Doc Holiday, 2 copies. This is your recursion, but the thing is the recursion does not target, because a lot of times players tend to Call by the Grave, or if a water player uses White Howling to banish one of the spells, it's like they don't know which card I'm going to get, because again, Doc Holliday's recursion effect does not target. And then 3 Caspar. This is your Stratos of all Musket cards without the ones you activate. Same goes for Doc. So the idea between Doc Holliday and Caspar is that if either player activates a non-Musket spell or trap that are in the same column as these two are, you basically get to search for literally any Musket card or recur literally any Musket card. And then the hand traps, 2 Ash, 2 Ghost Ogre, 2 Drolin Bird. And then for the spell lineup, Upstart, 3 Ties of the Brethren. If this card resolves, you are literally winning. If you do not know what Ties of the Brethren does, here's how this works. The turn you do this, you cannot special summon as well as no battle phase for the rest of the turn after this resolves. In return, pay 2,000, target 1 level 4 or lower monster you control. This lets you special summon straight from your deck 2 monsters with the same type, attribute, and level as that monster, but different names amongst each other. So the idea is that when it comes to Ties of the Brethren, this deck has 2 options. Option A is that the level 3s, this is something you want to pick the most when it comes to option A. If you have Billy the Kid as well as Caspar in terms of having a Musket in your hand off from Billy the Kid, Ties of the Brethren, so you can get Doc Holliday and Caspar, and then Billy the Kid ditch a Musket card to draw you to, just so that you should be able to have too many negates, too many interruptions, depends on what's the Musket spells and traps. Otherwise, if you do the vice versa route where Ties of the Brethren target the Caspar, obviously getting Doc as well as Billy the Kid, and then Caspar gets you a free search of any Musket, which is insane. You don't do ties off from Doc Holliday. This is something you never really want to do because you literally have no Musket cards from grave to hand. But the thing is, like, if it's like one of those instances where if you already have a good fill amount of Musket spells and traps in your hand, and if Doc is the only option, then it's pretty much no choice that you do Doc Holliday, Ties of the Brethren for Caspar and Billy the Kid. Otherwise, option B is where Ties of the Brethren out of Wild Bill Hickok specifically in a super grind game state, as long as you have the remainder of your life points left, Ties of the Brethren, target the Wild Bill Hickok so you can special Calamity Jane as well as Bellstar. And because you use ties on Wild Bill Hickok, as long as you got enough Musket cards in graveyard, he recycles out your cards so you get generate hand advantage and field advantage. But anyway, if Ties of the Brethren resolves, winning. Pot of Desires, tested 2 from the previous list. The second Desires does not come up, so I took the extra Desires out for the tactics, which does me nicely because opponents tend to hand trap either Max, Caspar, or Ties of the Brethren a lot. Tactics comes in 1 times too many. And then Forbidden Chalices, 2 of them. This is the spicy tech in the muskets because first off, it's quick play, so shouldn't need to say about it. And then second of all, if you go up against a floodgate monster where this deck has problems, Forbidden Chalice can turn off the floodgate monster so that you should be able to play the game. And then your magical musket, spells and traps, steady hands. Obviously, when it comes to targeting the musket monster you control, this lets you double the attack and defense of its original attack and defense, but it can't do no direct attacks. So generally the idea is that like any aspect of rogue decks or tower decks, if for some reason, let's say if I go against Mathmex, which they usually have Final Sigma at 3,000 flat, use steady hands, any of them starting at the minimum of 1,500. So with the likes of Billy the Kid from 16 to 32, Calamity Jane from 15 to 3,000, and then Wild Bill Hickok from 17 to 34. And then the Towers decks is that if I see either Blackwing Towers, Baron Towers, not Baron, excuse me, but Blackwing Towers, as well as Ultimate Falcon, there it is, Ray Raptor Ultimate Falcon, steady hands, the smaller muskets so that you can make them even bigger muskets. And then if for some reason we go against Adagnister, where if they do not put up at least 5,000 attack or 6,000 maximum, because it's literally the only way we lose, steady hands on Samuel from 25 to 5,000. Also, this lets you get over most things that can't be targeted or destroyed by card effects, which is extra relevant. And in a weird scenario is where, for some reason, if you specifically tribute summon Big Boy Samuel, and if you are going up against Magna Crusadia Avramax, you go Samuel over Avramax, steady hands, so that he's at 5,000, and it makes it so that Samuel over Avramax, so that they dish out the damage. Same goes for Wild at 34, Calamity Jane at 3,000, Billy the Kid at 32, but only do this scenario on a normal summon musket versus Avramax. 3 cross dominations, absolutely insane. Obviously, the spells and traps dealing with if you control a magical musket in any shape or form for the most part of it. This one cuts its effects off and attack and defense goes to 0. Specifically, some games is where you mostly want to do this in the damage step, because if they do not have Forbidden Droplet to counter all of this, then this makes it so that this turns off the musket abilities where they activate spells and traps from the hand, because if this is the part where if we enter damage step, it's like they better have Droplet to shut off the musket effects or it's bust. And then Call by the Grave in case of dealing with the hand trap issues. 3 Desperado, spot removal, a face-up card anywhere on the field. Dancing Needle, this is your DD Crow for 3, up to 3. World Legacy Awakens, the spicy trap in this deck Like, and I already know for the fact that Link into the Vrains is a real card in the TCG land, which I'm super excited about for this deck. So the way how World Legacy Awakens work is that this lets you put up a Link summon on anyone's turn. So generally the idea is you rather use this trap card on your opponent's turn, so that it depends on how many back row or how many monsters that they have. If Max resolves because of this card, you are literally in a winning spot. Last stand. This is your spell trap negate. Now, Fiendish Steel, this is the part where the conditions, the way of how this continuous trap works, this is the exception card where you don't specifically control a musket in order for this card to work. So, Fiendish Steel simply states, musket monsters you control cannot be killed by effects. And then, if this card in your possession gets sent to your graveyard by opponent's card effect, add one musket card from deck or graveyard to hand that is in Fiendish Steel. So generally the idea with that side effect is where if we can't add the card by itself, this is where Doc Holliday comes in, grabbing back the Fiendish Steel so that either Raigeki, Lightning Storm is live, or any other board wipes that they tend to have. We try to either grab the Fiendish Steel as quick as we can so that all of the muskets are protected, or otherwise, if my opponent has a board wipe as well as one of the starters to facilitate this whole combo in terms of spell traps, last stand to stop all of this. And this also helps you stop the counter traps too, which is amazing. And then extra deck, 4 cards in the extra deck because this whole entire deck, the way how I built it, can't handle on its own. So starting off with lineup, because the whole entire archetype is light, and the targets you're going to get out of this when it comes to lineup, that will be the likes of Doc Holliday, Billy the Kid, Calamity Jane, and Wild Bill Hickok. So that's already 4 targets you can get out of all from the line of Link monster. And then 3 Max. If this card resolves, depends on how many monsters or how many spells and traps your opponent controls, you are literally winning. Max lets you add spells and traps from deck to hand, depends on how many monsters your opponent has. Otherwise, special summons you any number of muskets, depends on how many back row and field spell your opponent has. And with that being said, this is James Polk with this unique Magical Musket deck profile for you guys. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share. Hit the notification bell to keep yourself constantly updated, and we'll catch you guys next time.